groove and jam. Getting down just for the funk of it. One nation and we're on the move.
The most important thing that we have got to tell our own story.
From the initial 3 gold records that you had, how did it grow from there? How many artists did the company add? How many other gold records were you able to support?
Well, eventually, CBS, they had the largest stable in the world of black artists. Not only that, ironically, those students from Harvard, they were rather naive because they had made a projection of 5 years. We did it in 1 year. So it moved just that fast, with that kind of saturation. You see, I could sit there in my office with my staff, and we could have a marketing meeting, and I could get every guy in the field tune in on that phone call, and we would talk about the record. We would play it. We would discuss it. We decide which marks we want to emphasize. We would push it in first, and that's what we did. We did it on almost on a daily basis, and on a Friday, then we would sort of have a recap of everything. And there was also competition among the staff, because they were vying to see how soon they could get a record played and how fast they could move it up the charts in their market.
So by the time you left CBS, how many artists are on the roster? And do you have a sense of that?
Let's see. When I left, they had hundreds of artists. Also, that department had increased to almost I would say 50 to 100 people, pretty close to 100 people in that department. See, but what happened? I had worked CBS domestic. Then I transferred over into CBS International, and which meant I left everything that was happening on the domestic side alone. And then when I started working on CBS International, which was unusual the way that came about, there was a friend of mine from Senegal, a promoter, and he came to me and said he would like to take the Jackson 5 to his country, which was Senegal. I had never gone to Africa, so I suggested to him, I told him rather, I'll work along with you in putting this together. And he set up a concert for the Jackson 5 in his country, and they were the guest of the president of Senegal. I think it was Leopold Senghor, I believe. And we took the Jackson 5 there along with their father. But prior to going to Senegal, I went to a guy named Walter Yetnikoff, who was the president of CBS International. And I told him, I'm going to Senegal with my friend. He's a promoter. We're taking the Jackson 5 to Senegal. Does CBS have any interest in that part of Africa? He said, no. Why don't you check out while you were there? So while I was there, I did a survey. And when I came back, I presented the survey to him. So he suggested, why don't you just switch over to the international division and implement this? I said, okay, that's where it happened. And now I'm in a completely different world. Now in the international division, the guys that I'm working with are world travelers because they gone all over the world. They all speak several languages. They all have advanced degrees. So these are the kinds of guys that I'm working with now. So this is the beginning of another very, very fabulous experience. And the way I started out on that, I had a good friend that was in the I think it was the Nixon White House, a fellow named Stanley Scott, who was a top black. He was a top black in the Nixon administration. So I told him what I was about to do. So I had to entree to the International State Department, and he put the trip together for me through the State Department. And I made a survey. I started out in East Africa, and I came on across the entire continent of Black Africa. East Africa, Central Africa, Ghana, Nigeria, Ivory Coast, and I ended up in Senegal. And once I put that report together, we determined that Nigeria should be the first place to set up shop in. Reason being, Nigeria was an English-speaking nation. At that particular time, Nigeria had about 50 million people. It's about 4 or 5 times that now, but we're talking about, this is in the 70s. So we set up shop in Lagos, Nigeria. I was based out of Paris, France, but Lagos, Nigeria was my territory. And I did that on up for about a year and a half. And then I got a call from my friend here on the West Coast, a guy named Don Cornelius. And he was getting ready to start his own label called Soul Train Records. He said, Logan, you gotta come with me. So I resigned from CBS International. Then I moved out here to Los Angeles, California, working with Don Cornelius and a guy named Dick Griffey. And then Don Cornelius, it was his company, it was his money, and after about a year and a half, he decided to close it. So when he closed his company, Dick Griffey formed a company called Soul Records, which is most successful. I formed the company, which was called Source Records. And I would say my greatest thrill in the my entire career was forming my own label, which is called Source Records. And once I had formed that label with a distribution deal with MCA Records, and my very first release was on a group called Chuck Brown and the Soul Churches, a tune called Bustin' Loose. First time out of the box, it went gold. And that was the beginning of my label, Source Records.
You had a pretty good track record of getting gold records right out of the box.
Well, I am mentioning the records that went gold. There were some misses also.
One nation under a roof. Get down, just father.
My name is Dr. Logan H. Westbrooks. And when I found out that I had been named along with my wife in this Angels Walk, especially along the Crenshaw corridor, I was really, really excited. And when I found out about it, I rushed over just to see, to prove to myself. And now that I am over here, it's bringing back so many fond memories. Initially, my wife and I, we made this as an investment when we purchased the Crenshaw Square. And of course, as time went on, we moved on into other things. But while we were here, we had all kinds of tenants that was renting space here, Japanese, Caucasians, black folk, female businesses. We had even a branch of the Jacobian Miles had an office here. We had a huge cleaners on anchoring on one end, on the north end of the complex. And also on the north end, there also was a branch of the Sumitomo Bank. I think it was about a 3-story building, as well as an office building on that end. Now, mind you, it was a perfect setup for an investor. On the second level, there were all offices. And on the ground floor level, there were retail spaces. And ironically, that's really the trend here today. We had a number of different restaurants. We had Korean restaurants. We had Japanese restaurants. All of those were here on the premises. And while we were here, I had a tenant, his name was Avery Clayton, who was a famous artist here on the Los Angeles scene. There were various artists that had set their wares up and on this balcony up here, where we had this choir, this gospel choir that would be singing. So we had those sounds that were going out all over the courtway, and the hundreds of people that were coming through. And they were looking at the artists, they were meeting the artists, they were chatting with the artists, they were buying their goods, they were buying gifts, and it just was a festive occasion. Each Sunday, people were looking forward to this. Again, that logo, Art Show, every sunny Sunday. And that was the logo, every sunny Sunday.
The legacy of history and culture remains in Crenshaw Square, which is also home of the Los Angeles Sentinel, the largest Black-owned newspaper west of the Mississippi. Today, the Sentinel hosts the annual Taste of Soul, attracting 350,000 attendees each year. Spearheaded by Danny Bakewell, the Taste of Soul is the largest street festival in the city and county. Could it be that what is manifested today was inspired by the vision of yesterday?
Come on. One nation under a roof. Get down, just farther from the bed. One nation and we're on the move. Stop us now. Yeah. Come on. Gonna give you part of what you're fucking for. Hey, I think I'm now. I got a question.